What's up, current and future disc golf addicts? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking you along on a round at the Kayak Point Disc Golf Resort Blue Layout. The disc golf resort at Kayak Point has three full layouts where they have their gold, which is a pro level open course, red, which is a more amateur friendly or soft pars for pros to where they're looking at picking up their eagles. The blue layout being the newest addition. When this round was filmed in June of 2024, the course has been open full time, but it is still in the process of being cleared out. And so what they're also warning everybody who's coming out to the course currently is it is not in its final stages as you're seeing it right now. The tee pads are in and looking amazing. The baskets are in, but the fairways have been a ton of work that the crew has put in through countless work parties to try clear up and make playable. And then there's also coverage available from GK Productions with the pro weekend that happened in late June. But moving on to the course itself, we're picking up here on hole 3. A majority of these holes are going to be blind and playing with a lot more elevation than you might initially expect. But knowing the property, this shouldn't be a surprise for the more seasoned players who've played at Kayak Point on the other layouts. What this does mean is that if you're not familiar with the blue layout, you will find yourself walking up the fairways to see where the baskets are, and it does change your approach to the holes a lot more than you might initially think. Hole 4 being a good example of, you look at the T sign, you look at U-disc, you think you know the shape that the disc has to fly to find its way down and make your life easy for hopefully a par, especially on these ones that are going to be out of reach. But the fairway trees do shape very specific shots, and the landing zones are near impossible to judge from the tee without having walked up or playing before and basing your decisions off of that. Shadows do more than the sun. I mean, the sun causes shadows, but whatever. There we're seeing our first casualty on hole 4, picking up a bogey. The blue course does have some par 4s, which are actually going to be a little bit on the softer end. Although you do have the technicality of navigating the trees in the fairway, the distances mean that there is actually a little bit of room for error, and you might be able to cover a mistake with a great shot. On my second shot here from the fairway, just getting a little bit unfortunate, trying to push a forehand hyzer flip through a gap, just pushing a little bit deep and hitting one of the guardian trees, but still picking up my par. Moving on to hole 6, we're again looking at a hole, even though you have the T sign and you have U-disc to look at roughly the shape of the hole. This was one that was really hard to try picture what flight a disc is supposed to take to get to the basket, and so not best call on my game plan here, but I was trying to throw an understable fairway and not really choose a specific gap I was aiming for, to where it felt like it more came down to luck. As long as you get a little something to flip right or move right, then you might have something to work with. Hole 7 being a nice little change of pace, coming out at just barely over 200 feet. Feels like a little bit of an ace run, but there are still these ghost branches that I do end up hitting, and unfortunately kicking a lot further right than I thought. I thought I was going to be perfectly in line trying to ace run the basket, but then leaving me just outside circle 1. Still converting the putt though, knowing that you're not going to get many birdie opportunities out on this course. Even for your pros, you're having to work for every shot, and you're probably going to have to hit your lines exactly how you intend them. This being another example of how rough it is once you get off the fairway and it really is just this army golf of left to right, and it's once you're off the fairway, it gets really hard to stay on it. And so right now we're seeing a little bit of that struggle, especially on this particular hole, having this little bit of a valley dip, even though it is just a par 3. Once you're down in the middle of the valley, it is so much harder to navigate and find your way up to the basket where it is compared to where you're level looking at it off the tee. Same on hole 9, the basket is roughly the same level as where the tee is, but with that dip in that valley in the middle of the fairway, you find your way down there, you're going to be struggling. For your pros, this might even be an opportunity and an eagle look, but for your amateurs, without having the arm to really reach that upslope on the other side, it is really easy to tail left or right, especially throwing a little bit of a faster disc. I was throwing a fairway here, trying to stay straight, but unfortunately end up hitting one of the trees in the fairway, leaving me scrambling again, playing in that army golf mode. Really taking some unnecessary strokes on the scorecard. But again, being as technical as the layout is, it is almost unavoidable. And to that sense, you do really try to play as smart as you can, or you should be, to where you're not going to be parking these holes, but you're looking at what is the most likely shot to hit the initial gap and make some forward progress to make my life easier, to try secure a par or make it ever so slightly more likely to score that par. Hole 11, very different in that sense, where you do have this big open hyzer line actually across one of the old golf fairways, and with this a lot more room for flexibility. There is that inside line too, but seeing as though there wasn't any Mando, it seemed like a no-brainer to throw that big hyzer out to the right, and then you just have a couple of trees in the fairway to navigate and card your birdie. Hole 12, even though it is at 340 feet, going back at it, this is one that you could even be throwing your putter at, seeing as how downhill it is. And this one, the basket is really strategically located just barely off to the right of the gap. You might think that a forehand flex shot might shape up for it, but that really just brings in all that early right side into play. In hindsight, I would have just down to a putter, but I was just throwing a straight mid, as we're watching a little bit more struggles on some of these par 3s. Again, a little bit of an early release, and once you're off, and then you're struggling to find your way back onto the fairway or on the par 3s, then to the green. Hole 14, really cool late flip, and not much fade needed at the end. I actually do end up getting really lucky, missing the gap a little bit to the right, and wanted to play an even wider hyzer flip line. And then seeing as though I got lucky enough to miss the fairway trees, there should just be a routine par from there. Hole 15, another par 4. Now this is going to be hard to see exactly my disc navigate, but I do end up pulling a little to the right, challenging the right side bushes, which I thought was going to be in an awful spot, but at the halfway point of the fairway, it opens up a lot more than you'd think, where you almost have double the amount of space than that initial half of the hole where the fairway does feel relatively tight. And then the same with the green, you have a lot more space than you would think, to where it really all comes down to that tee shot of, can you navigate that initial fairway? First half, if you can make it there, your life becomes so much easier. Hole 16, completely different in that you have a lot more fairway trees to navigate, plenty of options, not having much control over really technical gap hits as an amateur. This was a poke and pray, and I didn't see much reason in taking any of the other gaps, and I went for the most direct straight, and basically hoping to to miss a lot of the fairway trees and getting lucky and being able to actually card that birdie there. Hole 17, what we're looking at here is a shorter hole again. Not necessarily an ace run hole, but one you want to give yourself a birdie look at. It is tricky with some guardian trees by the basket, but one you want to have a look at most every time you're playing this course. Hole 18, another really tricky 350 foot perfectly straight shot. Not much left or right movement needed, but being as long as it is easy for that amateur to then have to try shape a little bit of a left to right and try get some consistency there. Lucky enough to make it most of the way up there and just have a jump putt for my plus 160 on the Kayak Point Blue layout. If you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.